The National Peace Accord has been signed ahead of the 2027 general elections, bringing together presidential candidates, party leaders, INEC, security agencies, and civil society groups. On the surface, it looks like a strong commitment to peaceful and credible pose. But the real debate is whether this accord is more than just a ceremony. And of course, President Bola Tinubu stressed that elections must not be treated as a do-or-die affair, pointing to progress in electoral transparency through innovations like BVAS, the permanent voters card. Yet, opposition voices remain skeptical. Peter Obi, for instance, argues that personal conduct matters more than signatures. Adewole Adebayo insists the peace without justice is hollow. And of course, Omoyele Sowore calls the accord a ritual that has failed to prevent violence in the past. So, the question before us is simple but profound. Can a peace accord truly shape the behavior of political actors, or does Nigeria need stronger mechanisms, perhaps even a justice accord, to ensure accountability? Tonight, we explore all of that. Joining the conversation right now is Father Atta Barkindo, is, of course, the Executive Director of the Kukah Center and Head of Secretariat, National Peace Committee, also known as the NPC, joins from our Abuja studio. It's great to have you, Father Barkindo. Thank you for your time. Let me get straight to it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, in 30 seconds, what exactly, for people that might not know, what exactly is the essence of the peace accord?
I mean, the peace accord did not drop from heaven. It didn't just come out of nowhere. There's absolutely a history to that. You remember in Kenya in 2007, in the Rift Valley, after Raila Odinga lost the elections, and there was massive violence and killing. Simply because before the elections, there were lots of narratives and incitements and personal attacks and ethnic profiling that was not attended to. And if you fast forward to Nigeria's election in 2011, when late President Buhari then contested against President Jonathan, and with all the personal attacks and insults, and we all knew the result, in one day, 800 people and more were actually killed because some of these narratives were actually not attended to. And so when it came to the 2015 general elections, people like Kofi Annan, you know, and Obi then, who was inter-party advisor to Jonathan, and the National Security Advisor's Office under Dasuki were literally very worried. They were very worried that if there was complete breakdown of law and order, who should they approach? Because there was complete trust deficit in government-led institutions. So they didn't approach the police, they didn't approach the security agencies, they rather approached Bishop Kukah, who now convened eminent Nigerians, anticipating that if there's a breakdown of law and order, these moral voices, these influential and respected voices, should intervene. And so when Jonathan lost the election in 2015, and before then, he actually signed the accord along with Buhari, and then he simply made the famous phone call and handed over. And Nigeria moved on, you know, very smoothly. And I think it is from that moment that the framework and the content of the peace accord was eventually developed and transformed and changed automatically to what we have today. So personally, I would respect the opinions of so many other people, but I wouldn't accept the fact that the peace accord is not contributing. Since 2015, it has made absolute, you know, contribution to the peace and stability of this country, including credible elections. And I think for me, that is why we have seen pockets of violence here and there, but not widespread violence, way and manner people anticipated.
Okay, I mean, because for people watching, there are questions as regards it. Even though some of the presidential candidates who even signed their call to did, you know, have opinions on the matter. But I'll come back to you, Father Barkindo. Let me go straight to Dr. Sam Amadi. Joins the conversation now as the director for the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. He joins virtually from Abuja. It's great to have you, sir. The peace accord, this, of course, we see happen every election cycle where the candidates come out and make commitment to ensure that they follow due process, follow the rules of the game, and remain peaceful throughout the entire process. But would you really say it has delivered, on this, what I call it, binding commitment? Or has it, do we switch it, just like what some are suggesting, maybe a justice accord, for instance? I think you're muted, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
I've had this conversation with Bishop Kukah around what people might perceive as the value of this peace accord. He makes the point that even though it might not have a legal enforcement tool, as people may like it, but at least it carries it's a cultural thing that helps us internalize the value of peaceful election. And it creates opportunity for discourse that underlies the expectation that we have that this election should be peaceful and that certain conducts should not be acceptable. So in a sense, as those of us who are maybe legalistic or institutionalist would argue, what's the point if we don't have capacity to punish and therefore create deterrence and incentivize good conduct? But people argue that society evolves. There's always a conversation going on all the time. Sometimes it takes time for those conversations to mature into laws, into hard laws, into sanctions and deterrence. But they create background discourse that fits into that. So in that sense, this is a good thing. It reminds us, but the point is this. I think that the committee should also focus again on, you may not have the power to punish anybody, but call out those who violate the code, the rules. I mean, yesterday or 2 days ago, we saw statistics about how many violations. Those matter. Those are important for research. But who violated? So I think that the missing link here, the commission, and maybe because of the way it's stacked with a lot of experienced institutional person, is probably not calling out people. So I would expect that after each electoral cycle, certain very despicable behavior, one example in 23 could be the one attributed to Bayo Onanuga, who spread clear hate speech. And there are too many on both sides, on all different parties. So the committee should get to a point.
You said Mr. Bayo Onanuga spread clear hate speech.
Yes, I said that, yes, he made comments that, in fact, I wrote to the police myself.
Can you be more specific on this particular hate speech you're talking about, sir?
After the election, he spoke about the Igbo people in Lagos in a manner, in fact, it was documented. I even have to write another one is Legopedia, advisor to the governor. I wrote to the IG. IG even asked to investigate because it was a clear published on Twitter. So the point I'm making is that, and it's not only reserved for APC, you have to then monitor communication in election. And I totally agree with them that we need to focus on election without hate speech, without violent speech or violent conduct. Take, for example, the statement I now clear Senator Francis Fada-Hussein, which although I should say that authority has gone to court. That's not fiction, that's a public domain. Those kind of comments, naming and shaming. So you have to move from organizing these rituals, as meaningful as they are, to also be a voice that's clear and distinct when those codes are violated. Yes, we may not nullify anybody's election for violating it. We may not prosecute or arrest anybody. We can call them out and says, in this governorship election, in Imo State, for example, or River State, for example, these various comments, actions taken by these political parties or these political actors or even supporters violated this code. And this is what we think should be done. Either more public education, more enlightenment, more codes, more enforcement by state institutions. So the problem people have with this committee is that it seems that its work finishes after the code. Then they go into desktop work, analysis and reports. But we don't need to see a public-facing intervention that signals to us that these codes mean something to those who fashion it.
Dr. Amadi, you've actually said a lot, and to a very large extent, you gave a bloody nose to the committee. So I'm going to give Atta Barkindo the opportunity to respond to issues that you have raised around this peace accord. So what do you have to say, Father Barkindo?
I mean, like any other institution in this country, it's true that we have our own challenges. But I think what people eventually see is the day of the accord signing. But the accord signing is not an event. For us who really organize this, it's an entire process. For example, if you look at Osun elections, almost 5 to 4 months, we are already in Osun, visiting communities, collecting data, analyzing, and passing that data on both to INEC, to the police, and also to the members of the Peace Committee to intervene, even ahead of the signing. If you go back, for example, for the 2023 general elections, we had the signing of the first peace accord in September 2022, and we encourage political parties, the candidates and supporters to stick to issue-based campaigns, peaceful rallies and campaigns. And we had about 12 clauses, which was to encourage personal conduct during campaigns. We monitored that from September right down to January 2023, shortly before the elections. And what were we monitoring? We were monitoring their speeches, we were monitoring their opinion pieces in newspapers, we were monitoring the articles they were writing, even interviews on the media. And when particularly from the spokesperson, about 48% violations. And out of these 43 to 48% violations, we have 58 violations specifically by the spokespersons. What did we do in January? We summoned the political parties, we summoned the presidential candidates, we summoned the spokespersons. Come and see for yourself, because what we were worried about was that they were fertilizing the political environment for eventual, violence that may occur if there's announcement of the result. But two things that people have to note. Number one, apart from the Peace Committee, there are two categories of other people that come to sign this accord as witnesses. INEC comes to sign as the most important and significant umpire. Then the police IG comes to sign as a witness, as the most important law enforcer. And once we gather this information, because the Peace Committee provides moral compass, those who have the constitutional authority to prosecute according to the law is both INEC and the police. And we hand this data over to them. And I think for me, the Peace Committee is making a very significant contribution.
All right.
And the conduct of politicians will then be important. But that does not take away the fact that, yes, there are challenges, and the Peace Committee will continue to review the framework and structure of the accord. In fact, the accord could become part of the Electoral Act into the future.
All right, thank you, Atta Barkindo. We'll go on a quick break. When we return, of course, we'll still be taking opinions on this matter. Stay with us, we'll be right back. You're still watching Politics HQ on News Central Television, and of course, I still have my guest with me. Dr. Sam Amadi, let me quickly come to you because we just have a few minutes left. My question to you is pretty much very straightforward. So, Omoyele Sowore, for instance, has said, look, we should have a justice accord, right, in place of peace accord. So, I just want you to put it in bullet points, because in your analysis, you did stress on accountability. What happens if you violate the tenets of the accord? So I would like you to put in bullet points in about 60 seconds. What are your recommendations?
That if you're going to have, by the way, we have laws that prohibit certain behavior. The Violence Against Persons Act prohibits the behavior of violent speech, or mobilizing violence. Criminal Code, even the Electoral Act, the problem has always been that the INEC fails to prosecute us, so we're asking for the Electoral Crime Commission. The idea of the Peace Accord is to signal that the actors are committed. So I think Obaka didn't come, probably because he thinks that what's the point? Like Atta Barkindo said, I agree with him that the committee is doing a lot of work. But the question is, if you're going to bring the IG every year to come and witness a signing, and the IG will see violation of that code, which the law, the criminal code, the VAP law, the cybercrime law prohibits, and the IG will do nothing to prosecute. Why should I bother to come the next year and see to the IG, he witnesses it, he does nothing? If you're going to bring EFCC and INEC, and INEC sees these violations, INEC does not even speak out. See, INEC has the jurisdiction to say, This kind of speech or comment or behavior is prohibited. It has a power, and it does not keep a blind eye. So many candidates, people feel that, why should I grace this occasion? Yes, the peace committee means well, is doing well. But the question is, at what point will the peace committee now say, it looks like the state actors don't care about this thing, and therefore we stop doing it? Because yes, the essence is not to generate data about violation. It's not that. Those are good for research and purpose, but the essence is that somehow your elections should be less violent, less acrimonious, because people sign to these codes and somehow they are self-regulating. The parties will follow through because they know there's a consequence for not following through. But if the IG, if every state actor does nothing, there was the incentive for people. It's a show to many people. It's not a show to the committee, but to the people, they will say, it doesn't matter. Atiku probably skipped it because for him, what's the point of signing what I signed 4 or 5 years ago? And after signing each election, the same crisis besets the process. The committee should go further and ask these guys to prosecute. There are laws that support what they're doing. The failure is that none of these actors care enough about prosecuting it.
All right. Dr. Amadi, thank you very much. Father Barkindo, what do you have to say to this? And before I let you also go, what is your message to particularly the politicians ahead of this election?
Is that for Sam or me?
It's for you, sir.
Okay, for me, I worry about the opinion expressed by Sam Amadi. If you follow that type of theory, for example, there are certain institutions you won't go. There are substantial problems with elections in this country. Does that mean we should throw away democracy? There are substantial problems with the banks. Does that mean we shouldn't go to the bank? There are substantial problems with churches and religious organizations. Does that mean we shouldn't go to church or go to the mosques? There are substantial problems everywhere. So for me, this is a very serious national issue. Nigeria is a country with the problem of the culture of impunity. And it's not just about the members of the peace committee. It's not just about the peace accord. It's a national problem where accountability and lack of accountability and the culture of impunity is very much consolidated in this country. So once we want to talk about that, my advice is, number one, the conduct of politicians will really matter and will help, because they are the policymakers at the highest level of government. Because if you look at the clauses of the peace accord, for example, they are literally linked to every provision of the Constitution or even of the Electoral Act, to a point that if you violate any of the accord of the clauses, you are automatically violating a particular aspect of the Electoral Act or a particular provision of the Constitution. So I think generally, in my opinion, because things are not working, because things are difficult, because things are tough, we have to jettison or throw away those things. In my opinion, we have to keep working, we have to keep pushing, and to make sure that there are not only credible elections, but there are also credible campaigns and political rallies in this country. And that will be my advice to the politicians.
All right, thank you so much. It's been great having you on the program this evening. Dr. Sam Amadi is the director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Father Atta Barkindo is the executive director of the Kukah Center and the head of Secretariat National Peace Committee, also known as the NPC. Once again, gentlemen, thank you for your time.